My perspective is, let's set the United States up for economic dominance and a more abundant future. And so the way we try to break that down at POW is a little more indirect. We show up to the offices of these congressmen and women, senators, and we lobby for this with this pragmatic perspective.
So speaking of wearing other hats, I'm going to switch hats.
Yes.
Onto the POW hat from the
POW swag.
So one of those hard things that you do is you're the CEO of POW. What is POW and how did that come about?
Protect Our Winters is a community of outdoor athletes, skiers, cyclists, runners. We're very poorly named. We're all seasons. And the idea is to connect athletes with climate action. Climate is like this big, scary thing. We all know it's happening. We're all a little bit scared and anxious about it. And it is very hard to solve the problem as one person. So POW brings people together rooted in the joy of what we love, running, skiing. We were founded by Jeremy Jones, who's a professional snowboarder. And through that collective action, we're able to make a difference. So we help pass better policies. We protect public lands that a lot of especially trail runners are out running on. We are getting more clean energy onto the grid, which is one of the highest leverage ways to solve climate change. And we're getting more people to vote and getting people who just love being outside and love sport. We're giving them a way to come together and make a difference.
I love it. One of the through lines that I've had with this, and for the long run, the two podcasts I host, has been the focus on green initiatives and things that we as individuals can do that, as you said, are high leverage. It's not recycling, it's solar. It's not composting, it's EVs. And like there are little things that feel impactful. There are little things that feel big or small or meaningless. And it's like, how do you figure out like the minimum viable thing to do to feel like, not just feel like you're having an impact, but to actually have an impact, where we do know that much of what's going on is due to some very large companies and policies that they have. But still, in aggregate, as individuals, there's a lot that we can do, which is why in 2021, I partnered with a solar company. I've recently partnered with another solar company, Alpenglow Solar and Service, here servicing Colorado. It's run by Colleen Clark, who is a previous guest on this podcast. Yeah. And she's amazing. She's probably going to listen to this episode. So if you're in Colorado and need solar, reach out and I'll connect you. I partner with the local Volkswagen dealer as a way to put people in EVs and more broadly, just like talk about what's going on in that landscape. And I guess we're going to have to publish this episode before September 30th because stupidly, the $7,500 federal credit goes away on September 30th. So EVs become more expensive. And right now you can get one at Emic for $150 a month, which is like crazy. We're leasing a second one tomorrow, actually. So very long preamble to say, like, I've wanted to have a conversation like this on the podcast, but I don't really know how to answer the questions. I'd rather probe and ask the questions around, like, how should we think about these types of things and where do we begin to have impact? So you said that getting clean energy on the grid is one of the highest leverage things that individuals that we can do. So tell me more about what that means and why should trail runners care or why should runners care?
Well, first, that preamble crushed. So when we start climate talks, we actually use some ski terminology. And I typically ask people, do you self-identify as green, blue, black, double black? And no judgment. Like we're all moving through a journey of learning and getting better at this, me included. That was full double black. So I just want to reference that. So let me take a step back. So when you think about climate, one of the things that makes it so hard is that we can't just clean up a beach or do something small to solve it. It is rooted in the way we as humans consume energy. So the way that we travel, the way we heat and cool our homes, the ways that our local grid, to get a little wonkier, is structured and the sources of energy that are going onto that. And one thing I like to emphasize is individuals actually don't have a lot of control over those decisions. Certainly, we can make choices, and we have choices now in choosing a heat pump, in composting, in getting solar. But this is a systemic problem. And the systemic problem is primarily caused by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels cause more than 75% of greenhouse gas emissions, more than 90% of CO2 emissions. And so the challenge is we aren't picking the best source of energy. And not only that, like if you came to me and said, oh yeah, but like all this new green stuff, like, is it expensive? Is it harder to implement?
Do you mean like solar and wind?
So solar and wind are also cheaper. And if permitting works and we move them forward, easier to scale more quickly.
Even residential solar?
Yeah, like there's a lot of disinformation out there, and something that a lot of people don't understand. Let's start with the first argument, which is like one of the primary motivators. It is cheaper. Solar and wind are cheaper sources of energy because they're technologies. So think about like oil and gas and coal.
It's a
like
product, right?
You pull it out of the ground, it's a commodity. So that pricing curve looks very different. The geopolitical risk in that looks very different. Solar and wind.
Like the source, like the country it comes from.
Absolutely. Solar and wind are technologies where over time, that technology, the deployment of it, the storage, the recycling, every component of it becomes better. Just like our TVs went from like big, huge, clunky boxes to like sleek, flat things that like fit on my wall. And so I love to like help people just like experience the joy of these energy sources. Like not only are they going to create cleaner air, more stable temperatures, they're going to be better. And I think we lose that feeling of abundance and improvement as humans. And like, by the way, we live in like the greatest technology country on the planet. And there's just so much to look forward to in how these technologies can be deployed. But right now, they are being stopped by fossil fuel interests. And, you know, like POW is very pragmatic. We're bipartisan. We work on both sides of the aisle, but we also have to be honest about what's happening in our political situation right now. So a question for listeners to think about: fossil fuel companies know what's happening with the cost curves of these new technologies and how readily they're being adopted. They gave over $400 million in the last election cycle, and that's publicly reported. There are other sources that are a little darker. And so I just asked the question, like, if we were going to put this in emoji form, this would be the thinking emoji, just to like bring it down a notch. Why are they doing that? Why do they feel it's important to...
Well, change is harmful for them.
Exactly.
From a business model standpoint.
Exactly. So they're influencing politicians, and our elected officials are actually the ones making decisions about our energy grid, about policies that might improve the adoption of these. You know, the EV and solar credits are great examples. I mean, so many people were like, awesome, I'm all in. And when you buy an EV, one of your first experiences is that the driving experience is also better.
Right.
You don't go to the gas station. The acceleration's awesome.
You don't go to the gas station, similar to how you don't like bring your phone to go charge it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? You plug it in at night if you have an EV and the ability to charge it at home, right? So it's an enhanced experience. Yes, it's also faster. And we've had an EV for 2 years, and we also have an ICE vehicle. And I've spent, in the time that Kate has had the EV, she 2 weeks ago needed to buy new tires, so $700. I've spent $7,000 on my Audi Q5 that guzzles, well, it doesn't guzzle gas, but there are so many more components in there that are not as efficient and effective as the EV components. So it's like a 10x multiple on the spend over the last 2 years between our two cars. she's paid almost nothing from an energy usage standpoint because Electrify America provides very
great company,
very good coverage. Through Volkswagen, they gave 3 years of free charging, so she would go charge it elsewhere or come here, and we have solar, so it's free here too.
Yeah.
And we were in Emic here in Boulder last weekend, and there were like 50 people in there buying cars because the credit runs out in the next few weeks, unfortunately.
And I'd love to give some context on why. So to help people understand why that's happening, there was a bill that just moved through Congress. If you read the press, it's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We do not call it that internally. We have a much non-podcast appropriate name for it.
To ask you that one offline.
Yeah, that's a post-convo dialogue.
Subscribe to the Patreon. You might get that.
Subscribe to paid. You will hear us swear. But this bill, so, when a bill moves through Congress, like think back to like high school government class, like this was like your textbook in action. It moved through a budgeting process, which means you only need a simple majority among congressmen and women, not 2/3, which is how most normal bills work. And climate legislation typically moves through budget processes because it's hard to pass. So if you think back to the biggest, most landmark investment in climate progress in U.S. history, it was the Inflation Reduction Act. Compare that name to the One Big Beautiful Bill. We got some comms advice we need to give some people. But the Inflation Reduction Act invested, almost $400 billion. It's like why we have these credits.
That's a 30% federal credit on solar, residential solar, and the $7,500 EV credit.
It was all designed to accelerate this market. This is still a market that's in its early stages. Market mechanisms aren't totally working yet. That's why you see a lot of venture capital making investments. And a lot of it is big infrastructure, and it needs policy to move forward. It was really smart legislation. It was investing in great companies. One I love is called Rewiring America. They're getting homes on cleaner sources of energy. Fast forward to today, this recent legislation basically reversed all of that. So something
Not basically.
Yeah, like maybe to a higher degree.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling that out. So where we had the best climate legislation in history, and like in a moment where we urgently need to solve this, we have now gone backwards. So the first question we need to ask is why? And it really is, you go back to that emoji of there is fossil fuel interest, influencing these decisions. And what we try to do at POW is to present the other side of that, the side that creates a more abundant, cleaner, more energy efficient, more energy dominant future. So the other comparison I like to make, and I want to explain this because I also think it's important to think, well, what could our legislators be thinking? And so the Trump administration has basically declared a strategy that we're going to invest in natural gas, coal, oil versus what China is doing. China has a strategy of clean energy as the future. They installed more solar last year than the rest of the world combined, and they're just rolling it out across the country and owning the build of that technology. I believe America is picking the wrong strategy right now. We're picking the wrong tech. And I believe we can compete on this new tech. We have the greatest technology companies on Earth. We have land that could deploy massive amounts of solar. But this influence from fossil fuels and this selection of a strategy that takes us backwards isn't right for our economic vitality. Our energy bills are going to go up. The estimates are $100 to $500 a month. We are going to have less energy security because we are going to remain totally hooked on these sources of fuel that are not the future. And I believe we're handing a pretty big market to a geopolitical competitor. And so my perspective is, let's set the United States up for economic dominance and a more abundant future. And so the way we try to break that down at POW is a little more indirect. We show up to the offices of these congressmen and women, senators, and we lobby for this with this pragmatic perspective.